In the Antarctic Ocean, 28 people were on board a ship, but their ship got trapped amidst millions of tons of ice. They had spent 7 months standing in the same place. During this time, one night, they heard a loud noise from beneath the ship, and suddenly the ship tilted to one side. It seemed as if someone was trying to forcefully push the ship from underneath. What happened next was beyond their imagination. Welcome again to Sticku TV videos. Ladies and gentlemen, the Antarctic Ocean, where waves are as tall as buildings, winds blow at 100 kilometers per hour, and water temperatures are so low that human blood begins to freeze. Traveling in this ocean is like embracing death. Even if you survive the cold and waves, huge icebergs as large as mountains can easily crush the ship. But over 111 years ago, when technology was not so advanced and ships were not as developed, a group of 28 people's ship got trapped in this deadly sea. They spent not weeks or months, but an astonishing 2 full years under the open sky. There was only ice, stormy winds, scarcity of food and water, and no chance of calling for help. This is a survival story the world calls the greatest survival story of all time. The hero of this story is Sir Ernest Shackleton, an explorer whose mission was to test the endurance of the human body. For this reason, he even named his ship Endurance. He had undertaken many terrifying missions in his life. In 1901, he was part of a mission to reach Antarctica but had to turn back from 750 kilometers away. In 1907, he attempted again but had to retreat just 150 kilometers before reaching his goal. Then, in 1914, his plan was not only to reach Antarctica but to cross the continent on foot. The reason was that Sir Ernest Shackleton wanted to do something that no one had ever done before. This mission was called the Imperial Trans-Antarctic Expedition. Because of its perilous nature, no one was willing to go on this mission. The first challenge Sir Ernest faced was to find a crew for his expedition. He advertised this in the Times newspaper with the headline, "Man Wanted for Hazardous Journey." It was not an ordinary tour operator's ad. It clearly stated that the pay would be minimal. They would face deadly cold, remain in darkness for months, play with dangers at every moment, and there was no guarantee of safe return. Sir Ernest wanted to attract people who were not afraid of danger. Soon, he hired a crew of 27 men. Sir Ernest had planned this mission for 4 years. But as the time drew near, his dreams started to fade because World War I had begun. Everyone thought the expedition would be cancelled. However, Britain, which had already declared war, approved the Imperial Trans-Antarctic Expedition. A very strong ship was needed to cut through the icy Antarctic Ocean. But such a ship was not easy to build. Luckily, a ship that had previously been used in the Arctic was available. A Norwegian company had built this ship for another explorer aiming to hunt polar bears, but his business failed. Sir Ernest bought this ship and named it Endurance. Endurance was made of thick American oak and was designed to withstand the immense pressure of ice. It was a hybrid vessel, equipped with sails and engines. Finally, the day Sir Ernest had been waiting for arrived. On August 8, 1914, Endurance set sail from Plymouth, England. Over the next 4 months, it traveled across the Atlantic Ocean, first to Argentina, then to South Georgia Island. After completing final preparations there, they headed towards the Weddell Sea on December 5, 1914. The ship carried 28 men and 50 large dogs trained to pull sledges across Antarctic ice. The journey lasted 46 days, and they were just 1 day away from reaching the Antarctic coast. But then, on January 18, 1915, the first trouble appeared. The ice layers over Weddell Sea thickened, and at one point, they became up to 18 feet thick. Endurance lacked the strength to break through it. Sometimes the ice was so weak that they couldn't even start walking on it. Endurance was already about 130 kilometers away from Vassal Bay and had become trapped in the ice. Initially, they thought it was a common problem, but in reality, it became the biggest obstacle of the entire Imperial Trans-Antarctic Expedition. After several days of trying to free the ship, they decided to manually push the 300-ton vessel forward. For 2 continuous days, The crew worked tirelessly to cut through the ice and clear a path, exhausting themselves completely. But it was far more difficult than they had imagined. Despite their efforts, they managed to move the ship only about 300 meters. After that, Endurance was trapped again. After a month of trying to free the ship, Sir Ernest finally gave up on February 14, 1915. He decided to leave the ship to the natural movement of the ice, hoping the winter would melt the ice. During this time, Endurance served as a winter station. The crew started their routine, discussing plans, playing soccer, cutting each other's hair, and cooking, all while waiting for the ice to crack and give way to either move forward or backward. Days passed, and the crew grew closer, developing emotional attachments even with the animals. Everyone hoped they would someday reach some civilization, but nature had other plans. In April 1915, the ice began to crack, but due to increasing pressure, the layers piled on top of each other, causing an unexpected event. The immense force of millions of tons of compressed ice started to exert pressure on Endurance as well. At this point, it was crucial to free the ship from the ice pressure. So everyone worked together to remove the ice. After several weeks of effort, they managed to free the ship, but the danger was not over yet. On the night of July 14, 1915, suddenly a loud noise came from beneath Endurance and the ship tilted to one side. No one knew what had happened. Was it a whale collision or something else? The night passed, but by morning, the situation was unbelievable. The compressed ice layers had not only tilted the ship, but had also completely broken the rudder used to turn the ship. The crew had now been stranded for 7 months, at least 2,000 kilometers away from any human settlement. No contact, no help in sight. The only hope they had was Sir Ernest Shackleton. By October 18, 1915, the dreams of the Imperial Trans-Antarctic expedition had been shattered. The crew had been stuck in the same place for 9 months. Suddenly, one night, a wave of pressure caused Endurance to tilt sharply by 30 degrees. The threat of the ship sinking grew. Cracks appeared and water started pouring in. The crew worked all night to prevent water from flooding the ship, but their shelter, the ship, was no longer safe. On October 27, 1915, Sir Ernest ordered the ship to be evacuated because saving lives was now the only priority. All essential supplies, animals, provisions, lifeboats, and bedding were taken out, and the entire crew was forced to stay under the open sky on the ice sheet. The ship, which had been their support for months, finally shattered under the pressure of the ice and slowly sank into the water. Everyone's main question was, how long could they wait on floating ice? Sir Ernest Shackleton decided that staying there was too dangerous. He knew there was an island called Paulette, 550 kilometers away, which once had supplies and shelter, but reaching it with only 3 lifeboats was impossible. The ice that could crush their ship was too dangerous for small boats, so they decided to walk to the island. They began their trek toward Paulette Island, the most dangerous part of their adventure. Over the next 6 months, the crew faced deadly dangers, either falling into cracks in the ice or being swept away by the currents. Luckily, the floating ice sheets carried them slowly toward Paulette Island. Sir Ernest decided they would survive by floating and walking on the ice. They hunted for food like penguins and seals. By February 1916, 13 months into the journey, they had been traveling for over a year. Their condition had worsened to the point that they could survive on just 1 biscuit a day. In the following month, while waiting for Paulette Island, their situation became so dire that they had to even kill their dogs for food. They hoped to find supplies once they reached the island. But the floating ice sheet changed direction and headed toward Elephant Island instead of Paulette. Many days of stormy weather followed. Temperatures plummeted to -20 degrees Celsius, and several crew members suffered frostbite. Their faces and tongues were so frozen that swallowing became difficult. Finally, in April 1916, they managed to reach Elephant Island, barely touching the land after 16 months. They took a deep breath of relief, but the island was barren and uninhabitable for long, especially once their food ran out. The only hope was a place 1,300 kilometers away, South Georgia Island. Sir Ernest Shackleton decided to undertake a daring mission to sail in a lifeboat to South Georgia Island. In 2022, 107 years later, the ship Endurance was finally discovered in the Antarctic Ocean. It remains perfectly preserved at 3,000 meters below the ocean surface. The name inscribed on it can still be read clearly. We hope you enjoyed this video from Sticku TV. Please like and share generously. Thank you very much for your love and support. See you in the next amazing video.